Hi there, and welcome to everybody watching and listening to the Wednesday podcast presented by This Is Ibrox. I'm your host, Kyle McLean. I'm joined by two fantastic guests as always. I'll come to you first. Iain, how are you doing? Feeling a wee bit more positive after that result in the World of Rangers at the weekend?
Very much so, mate. Yeah, I'm quite glad I wasn't rolled out after the Dundee or Ross County game because I wouldn't have been in such a pleasant mood. But no, all good. Good game at the weekend, obviously, we'll get into. So happy days.
Yeah, that's it. Don't remind me about that Dundee. That might have been one of my worst experiences so far as a podder on This Is Ibrox. But Reiss, how are you today as well?
Yeah, all good, mate. Just waiting the next Rangers game. It feels a bit weird not having a midweek game after so many in the trot, or what felt like it. So, I just counting down to the weekend.
Yeah, the thing about it was I just assumed we were playing Dundee tonight after what's been going on for the past few Wednesdays. So it was nice to. Oh, it's never nice. It's not nice to see Rangers not playing, but it's always I get a wee break for the madness that's to ensue for the post split games. But on today's show, as always, we've got loads to talk about. I think Iain was the happiest guy alive when I gave him my agenda today, based on how centre half centric it's going to be. There's an interview that Connor Goldson's done that's been doing the rounds, so we'll get the guy's thoughts on that. I'm keen to get everybody's thoughts in the comments there as well. It's proven to be a bit more controversial than I thought something like that would be. We'll get the guys' thoughts on Goldson being dropped or rested at the weekend by Philippe Clement. We'll discuss the futures of the other centre half, seeing as that's the area where we'll be talking about. Discuss the criticism of Dessers. Has it been harsh? That got there we go. That's that part of the pod done already. We both are contributors because that got an interesting reaction on social media. Reiss, it wouldn't be a pod without doing some academy stuff. So there's rumours about Zeb Jacobs going. So we'll get your thoughts on that as well. Another interesting question that I thought is, who are the guaranteed starters for Rangers from now until the end of the season? I was quite shocked at how little names I had on this. Again, get that in the comments. And we'll look at Rangers' first game against St Mirren for the post-split games. But Iain, I'll come to you first. Connor Goldson gave an interview. I think the podcast was called Talking Transitions. It was quite a long interview. I couldn't believe it when I fired it on. It was nearly an hour and a half. A very, very candid interview. Some of the sort of brief main talking points that he touched on, talked about his health, his heart condition in particular, which I thought was fascinating to hear a footballer talking about that side of the games. He talked about the mental side of playing for Rangers. A comment on the kids that was doing the rounds. I will leave this question as open as it gets. Iain, what did you make of that interview?
I really enjoyed it, to be honest. Also, first thing I saw about this interview was the little 20-second clips we got on Twitter the last couple of days of people slating the kids' comment, the silver medal for the Europa League, the Old Firm sort of fear, pressure that he has. Nothing there shocked me, to be honest. If we break that down one by one, Rangers getting a silver medal at the Europa League is incredible. Still a great run. It's still some of the best memories I've had as a Rangers fan. So I wouldn't take any shame in coming second there. He talked about Celtic and the pressure of that game. Obviously, there's pressure of that game. It's not a bad thing. Pressure's not always a negative. And then the kids' comment probably get the most traction, I guess. But it's just modern football, and I find any professional footballer in the sort of later stage of their career that doesn't have that exact same opinion of the youth coming through. So, no, nothing too troublesome for me. Obviously, he's quite pally with the two guys that were running that podcast. So I think he was a bit more honest, maybe, than he had to be. But no, I was all for it. Good interview. Timing's obviously not ideal, considering it's the first game he's been dropped for in 5 years, kind of thing. And it's just been released, so not ideal from his point of view there. But I thought it was all pretty standard stuff. It's quite good to get an insight of his personal life in a way, because obviously, I put out a tweet this morning that was saying how you don't always think of a player's personal life, whereas in Goldson's situation, his two sons have a sort of similar heart issue, or it's been detected. So I think he mentioned in the podcast that he only found that out, I don't know if it was this season or this year, but quite recently anyway. So we kind of put two and two together and think, well, maybe that is having an effect on the pitch for him, which is completely fair. and it obviously leads into whether Balogun should play more and stuff like that further down this conversation. But there was nothing too bad for me in there. I enjoyed the hour and a half. It was quite long, as you say, but no, it was pretty good stuff. I'm quite keen on players to do that kind of thing to get a more personal insight into them and stuff. So all good from me.
Yeah, no, I think that's largely the way the sort of sensible aspect of the Rangers community are feeling, and that's never a word that you hear in sentences close to one another is the word sensible and Rangers. But Reiss, again, very open question. Don't know if you want to go into more specifics interview, but what did you make of it as a whole, the content? I'm not saying were you offended by anything, but I can probably tell that my personal opinion is some of the stuff we've seen on social media has blown it a bit out of proportion.
I'll openly admit I'm a bit biased, having met Connor Goldson before in real life. He's a cracking guy. Honestly, he was so genuine that when I met him, decent enough guy and that. So I've got that positive opinion of him already. And then with that interview, some of the slack he gets, I think, is a bit over the odds anyway. I think, honestly, Connor Goldson could yawn when he gets up in the morning and people would be saying, oh, he's not hungry enough. I've seen a tweet similar to that on Twitter and it did resonate with me, but I don't mind it, to be honest. I think the timing of it, people will moan about it, but it's not as if Connor Goldson's choosing to release it there and then, do you know what I mean? And he's not running the YouTube channel that produces the podcast, so it's not really something that he's got much control over, and I've got no issue with it. The guy's came out, he spoke, he's been honest. I think everything he said right. It's even the whole kids thing, the kids now aren't the way we were back in the day, they're a bit sheepish when they walk past you and that. He's probably right. I don't see the big issue with it. People are like, this is our vice captain. And what? The vice captain's not going into the under 18s and shaking all their hands and being like, oh, hiya, how you doing? Who cares? It's not a big issue. But people will just find a reason to moan about anything, I think.
Yeah, I think you could apply that to any aspect of life. People going, oh, the kids now. I mean, I'm coming up for 33, and that's the way I'm starting to feel about things. Back in my day, the streets would have been full of Waynes playing football and all that stuff. Those parks would have been full. But it is changing. I think they are a lot. The younger generation are a bit more, glued to their phones and all that sort of jazz. But I agree that Reiss maybe touch on something a bit more specific in it. Again, he's talked about his health issues, and I for one just thought that it was so refreshing to hear a player talking about that, and it is, given what he's been through, it is genuinely remarkable that. And it maybe, lets us understand his mentality a wee bit into why he's played so many minutes every season for us since he's joined. It was refreshing to hear that from a footballer, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole honesty that he brings in that podcast, he's so candid about everything, about the heart operation. There was a part of it that made me shudder a wee bit where he says he's seen photos of his heart and stuff. And just hearing all that really puts it into perspective of where this guy's been in his life. So realistically, when he goes out on a football match, and this isn't what fans are going to want to hear, it really isn't. I'll warn you that now. If he loses a football match, he's probably thinking, I've been through a lot worse than that. I'm not really, considering I have been life or death before, a football match isn't that to him. Do you know what I mean? So it puts it into a bit of perspective for him.
Yeah, completely agree. And the last thing I'll say about it here, and I'll ask your thoughts on this, Iain. Reiss touched on it a wee bit there in terms of the timing of the interview. It's not great. It couldn't have been any worse, I don't think, in terms of, he's just been dropped for the first time in ages. Yep. But maybe some of that stuff you're looking for either Rangers or some of his own representatives, because they will be aware that this is taking place, to say, listen, do you mind releasing that at the end of the season maybe or something like that? What's your thoughts on that? Or do you just, like Reiss, do you just think there's no control over it? It's nothing to do with us?
Yeah, it's probably more of the latter there. I don't think he's got any say in it. I think he could, obviously he's pals with the guy that runs the podcast, but there's probably going to be a manager behind that who couldn't care less about Golden's personal situation kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just, like we said, it's bad time and he's just been dropped and he's on a podcast. I thought it was interesting during it that he does mention that he's terrified of being replaced and terrified of being dropped. That was that's the most ironic thing possible. He's just released that as you get dropped. But nah, as I say, he's probably done it a few weeks ago during the international break. It probably took a month to edit and piece together and preview and then finally get out. So if it had come out a month ago, wouldn't probably as much negative feedback about it. But I think most people understand it's just the way of the world. It's just going to be out when it's out kind of thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that opinion more. I think if this comes out, a few days after it was actually recorded, I don't think anybody bats an eyelid and stuff like that. It's a perfect storm, getting dropped and poor performances and then releasing a pod, a very candid and personal pod that just... as you said, Reiss, somebody's always going to find something to complain about. Right, item 2 on the podcast with relation to the centre half business. Obviously, it was a big decision at the weekend there. Iain, give us your thoughts. We've already heard from Reiss on Sunday.
Yep.
And you might have changed your mind on some of the stuff you said, Reiss. I don't know, but I'll come and ask you anyway. But it was a massive decision. One I personally did not see coming at the time. But what did you make of the decision itself to drop Goldson for Balogun, and what do you think the impact of that was in the overall performance and the team?
So initially I was shocked, to be honest. I thought if we're going to see some kind of shock in the lineup, it might be like Lundstrom dropping out for maybe a Raskin or like Tom Lawrence playing in that position kind of thing beside Diomande, but Goldson dropped, and more so Balogun coming in completely out the cold after having a flu a few days earlier, as we were told. It's a bit wild looking back. I mean, if Hearts win that game, then that's all that Rangers fans are talking about. Like, why has Clement done that in this game? Blah, blah, blah. So very brave from him. I guess we do take a step back. It's Balogun. We trust him. We know how good he is, how calm he is, and just how dominant he can be. I mean, obviously he's up against, in my opinion, the best striker in this league in Shankland. Kept him pretty quiet. Obviously, has that one chance in the corner, but besides that, he was kind of mute in the game. Can't remember him doing anything else. I guess, like everyone's saying, my little surprise was that he played like right centre back. I thought the big thing was, at least we get to see Souttar in his natural role here, and clearly we didn't. But I think part of that is maybe to help Tav. Obviously, Tav's had his own defensive issues this season. Him and Goldson haven't been playing well for months now, so maybe a case of bringing Balogun in, just give Tav a little bit of help on that side was part of it. Who knows? We'll probably know more after we see the St Mirren lineup and who's playing on what side kind of thing. But you know what you get with Balogun. He's solid, he's calm, he's a good presence, he's a good leader, and he showed all those qualities in that game.
Yes, again, hard to disagree with what you said there. I think the word was calming. I think he did have a sort of calming effect on that team. Sometimes it just takes a wee personnel change just to mix it up, and I really felt that he brought that. Reiss, you gave a good account of the game at the weekend and what you thought of it. Again, this was the talking point on everybody's lips before the match kicked off. What was your thoughts on the decision itself, and what did you think that it had that calming impact, not just on the defence but on the whole rest of the team?
So originally I thought it actually might go the other way, because I thought he's an influential player. He could lose the dressing room with it. The likes of Tav, who'll be so used to playing with him, Jack Butland and stuff, how are they reacting to it? And you'll have seen it at Ibrox yourself. Like, you'll hear Connor Goldson's the most vocal defender at Rangers, if not the most vocal player in 9 out of 10 games. So to lose that presence, you start to worry, does it backfire? But to have gone and got the result, it just maybe puts out more of a statement, and that he's actually going to still get results, even though he could drop one of his most influential players. And I think Tommy had said it on Sunday as well. It's a statement that nobody in this team is undroppable, and it might start to perk up a few of the other players who maybe been underperforming the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well there. It certainly was a rocket, and it was to show everybody that nobody's immune from being dropped from this team, because I think we've all heard it. We've all heard multiple managers say, the leadership group, it's always Tav, then, there's a reason Connor Goldson's the vice captain of the club, and you talk about Lundstrom and stuff like that as well. And yeah, it was a huge statement, and I think it certainly gave a wee shake up to a few of the players that hadn't been performing particularly well of late. Listen, let's get into it. Seeing as we're here, we're talking about the centre halves. Maybe get the guys' thoughts a wee bit more on some of the other aspects of that game a bit later on the podcast here. But I'm dead keen to get your guys' thoughts on how you think Rangers should, proceed going forward. What do you think will happen? But I want to talk about maybe long-term futures of some of the players. Iain, I'll come to you first here. We've been talking about him there, Connor Goldson. Heard a few, rumours and not rumours, but sort of murmurings online, and certainly within our WhatsApp chat and amongst other Rangers supporters, that Goldson's just maybe been here for a bit too long. It's time for him to move on. I'm a stats man. I know stats isn't the be all and end all of football, but this is just a way to compare them all. Connor Goldson, I'll start off. He's played 4,500 minutes basically since the start of the season, 48 games, conceded 42 goals, and has been on a clean sheet 22 times out of those 48 games. What's your thoughts on Connor Goldson's long-term future at the club?
It's not bad for someone who's terrible, is it? I still like Goldson. He's in bad form, that's fair, but I think our problem has been overplaying him maybe this season. Finally kind of catching up with him. Obviously that was fine when he was like 28, 29, 30s now, and he's 31, he's 32 this year. He's not getting on, because the centre-back can play, as we saw with guys like Davy Weir, for most of up to the 40s kind of thing. But I wouldn't be kicking him out the door kind of thing. I don't know if there'd be interest there. I don't know what kind of money we'd get for a Connor Goldson at a stage of his career, but I think there's a lot more problems in our team than the centre-back area, to be honest. We're talking about losing a lot of players this year. There's always the rumours with Tav going to Saudi, Lundstrom's contract. I don't see Ryan Jack staying, so that leadership group is really getting ripped apart. So yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing to keep a few guys who know the club, know what it's like to win trophies here and stuff like that. And overall, Goldson has been an incredible servant to us. And this season, we're still best defence in the league. Last time I checked, we're still plenty of clean sheets, still good performances from Goldson throughout the season. It's just this last few weeks, maybe month, it has dipped. But I don't think you could say he's the only one. I mean, Dundee, for example, if we win that game 2-0, defence is the exact same game it has. There's probably a lot less chat about that. Ross County, if the midfield do their job and the defence has more cover, again, no one's coming for the centre-backs, but it's just a reactionary thing. But I get, I was the exact same. I was swearing and calling every one of them this, that and the other after those two games, so I'm not going to sit and say I wasn't. But as I say, I don't think we could sell Goldson for a huge amount. And I think if we want to bring in someone of his quality, class, reliability, we're going to be paying a lot of money. So, as I said, if we've only got a set budget this summer, there's a lot more position I'd rather fix than rip what's not terrible at this point.
Yeah, it's just been an odd season from Connor Goldson. He's just not been his usual reliable self. You don't want to say a player's look disinterested at times, but I mean, there's so many situations that you've been sat at Ibrox and you're just like, well, Goldson's just going to go in there and nick this ball off this guy's feet, and it hasn't happened. Something's happened with his confidence, and is it just he's too comfortable? There's a couple of comments coming in here. RFC72 says he has to go this summer. It's been a season too far for him, for me. And Paul changed his name here. McGorrigle says if a decent offer comes in for Goldson and Tav, but they can go. Do you subscribe to that opinion, Reiss? Do you think that if a decent bid comes in for Goldson, that he'll be going, but just that that it's just maybe been a season too far?
No, I think Connor Goldson's probably still our best centre half. I don't think there's anyone on the same level of him at centre half in our team. For me, it's always been Goldson and whoever you put next to him. It's never been Souttar and a toss-up between Goldson and Balogun, like it might be now. But I think the way I don't know if I'd mentioned it on Sunday, but the way I viewed James Tavernier was that if every player in our squad was the level of James Tavernier, we'd canter the league.
Yeah.
And if every player in our squad was of the quality of Connor Goldson, do we win the league? I was thinking about that there. I'm not certain that we canter it, but I reckon we probably would win the league. So in that instance, he's not the problem. If every player in our team was at the level of Scott Wright, we're in trouble. So you get rid of players that you say, if everybody's his level, we're nowhere near good enough. So he's nowhere near good enough. So with Goldson, I'd keep him. I think he's an influential player, as I've said probably 10 times now, but he's, especially when you've got guys like Ryan Jack and that drop him out the squad in the summer, that I think there's too much overhaul can be done. And like you say, he's aging. We're not going to get a massive fee for him. Realistically, what's the point in punting him and taking a big, massive gamble? You've seen how much they've struggled across the other side of the city to bring in a decent centre-half. I think they've spent something like 10 million in centre-halves that barely played this season. So it's not an easy position to scout for, especially somebody that's going to fit into Scottish football, speak English, all of that. So for me, it's just a headache you don't need to have this summer.
Yeah, well, we all know how we dealt with that last time when his 4-year contract was coming towards an end, and we thought that he was all off, and then we signed him again in another 4-year contract. We said that it's always going to be cheaper just keeping a guy who knows the club, has won stuff here before, rather than going out and, as you said, finding that young replacement centre half. A few comments coming here. CGM55 says Goldson is getting older. He is in the decline, and that is it. That's the sort of main where my head's at on it, is the big question mark over it. That, and just on you go. Are you coming in there?
I was going to say, for me, I think he's lost a couple of yards of pace, but other than that, he's all right. As long as we adapt our line or the players playing with him, you notice that, so that if a ball gets hoofed over the top of him, somebody else is there to get it. Yeah. I don't see the big issue. I think he's only lost a yard, really.
This is sort of what I was going to try and touch on. I think the problem for us is that we do rely on Goldson for a lot of he's the first name in the team sheet in defence, or he has been for so long, that it's maybe time that he's not just punted, but he's rotated a bit more. Like if it's him and Souttar sharing right centre back, and you brought in a capable left-sided centre back, then that's two brilliant options you've got to complement a guy who, I saw a few comments about, we need pace, we need power. If you've got a pacey, powerful left-sided centre back, then that could be a perfect combination, whether it's Souttar some games, Goldson some games. Obviously we play weekend, midweek most of the time, so that'd be a great balance to have. Whether you want someone on Goldson's wages being a sort of bit part player, I know that's going to be a huge problem, but as we're saying, if you're going to be selling him for not a lot of money, I just don't think it's worth the risk at this point, considering how much change is going on already this summer.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I was 100% banking that would be the moment where you were going to step in and give your "we should be playing three centre halves" speech in this podcast, but I know that'll come later. But listen, some of the comments here agreeing with everybody. RSC 72 says we concede most of our goals from the right side of the park. Tav and Goldson. So yeah, but it's what. Tav, I'm always caveating it with, it's what he gives you going forward. That's the thing. I can see Reiss about to blow there, man. That's full Gattuso managing over in Italy face right there. The Hugster here comes in with a slightly different angle. He says the only reason I'd let Goldson go is to get his 37k wage off the wage bill, not for any perceived decline in his abilities. And yeah, think of what Rangers could do with that could be a couple of players signed in the summer for that. But yeah, we'll wait and see. God, we talked about Connor Goldson for a lot longer than I was anticipating there. So I'll move on to the next one here, Iain. I don't know if I'm being a bit cruel to you with this one, but next centre half, he has a centre half. He has at Rangers. Ben Davies. He's played just over 1,000 minutes. Played 12, conceded 11 goals, and has the lowest clean sheets out of all our central defenders. Has Ben Davies' time at Rangers been a failure?
Yes. I feel bad because I've been on this podcast before saying that I don't think he's as terrible as people make out. I just don't think he's really suited to what we want or what we need or have needed at any point, kind of thing. The worry there, but is that there was a lot of rumours this time, or sort of summer last year, that were trying to get him out the door and trying to sell him, and I think it was Stoke or Preston kind of thing wanted him, but he didn't want to leave. So I'm pretty sure he's still got another year or two left in his contract. If that's the same scenario, if he's happy just sitting banking that money, we might not be able to punt him, which is going to be a problem. Because again, I think he's on big wages. You'd think surely an English-born centre-back, left-sided, is going to have a place in the Championship or League One somewhere. So it's more guys like that I'm determined to get off the wage bill and to get rid of, rather than your Goldsons and Balogans kind of thing. So if we can get any sort of respectable fee for him, we've got to take that and run.
Yeah, completely agree. So there's a couple of comments here. Bluebells are blue says Ben Who, totally agree. And RFC 72 says we need to get these huge wages off the book. Davies, Goldson, and Lundstrom especially. Paul comes in here and says sell Davies. He's not suited to Scotland. And this sounds right, but everybody knows I love a stat. Stephen Fay here says the age of our back four has the combined age of 120, which is sounds mental when you put it like that. That's fine. We'll gloss over Ben Davies. I think we can all, unless you really want to talk about him, Reiss, but I think it's safe to say that, judging by your facial expressions there, you've not considered Ben Davies' time in Scotland a success.
Get rid. I don't even think he's a bad player. I just think he can't be bothered. Just get rid.
No, that's fair enough. But I'll stick with you here, Reiss. The next one, Rangers' second most prolific centre back, despite being out injured for what I had in my head for quite a large period of time. John Souttar obviously ticks a lot of boxes for us, homegrown player, all that stuff for all the Europeans. So he's a guy, I don't think we'll be letting him go anytime soon. His stats, just to put it in a bit of context, comparing it to the other centre halves, played 3,100 minutes so far, 39 games, conceded 33 goals, which is significantly less than the other ones, and has been part of 18 clean sheets in the whole of all the games he's played at Rangers this season. What have you made of John Souttar, and is he a guy that you would say would be a starting centre half for us, even going into next season?
I think he's definitely in contention. I wouldn't rule out upgrading him in the summer. To be honest with you, he's a great person to have in the squad. I think his character, he's, as you say, the quota sort of things he ticks. He's a great ball carrier. That's what I really like. But I think all too often this season, you've maybe seen him, I don't want to say bottle it, but shy away from doing it. I remember when we played Dundee away, you've seen Balogun step in with the ball and he was carrying it about 30 yards. He was just about playing as a 10 at the time. And that's what Goldson does quite a lot, especially at Ibrox against these smaller teams. Invites people out, and then you find wee spaces in behind them. He's brilliant at that. It just starts off with attacks for us. That Goldson probably doesn't do enough for me. So I'd have him in the squad 100%. Probably starting next season, because I don't think we'll realistically replace him. He's got a bit of an error in him now and then, but I think for his physicality, he's probably better than Goldson there, I would say. For his physicality, aerial presence, and just the fact that he's in the squad and a Scottish player, I would keep him. Yeah,
that's a huge difference in the way that Goldson's played in this season is his aerial ability, his ability to win aerial duels, and John Souttar really has stepped up for that. I just think he looks the part. I really like, it's the next guy we'll come on to. I think these two are of the same category. I really listen to their post-match interviews. I think they're great, representatives of the club. I agree with you. Maybe he does have the odd mishap in him. But what's your thoughts on John Souttar? And is he a guy you'll be keeping around next year? Is he going to be a starter for us even going into next season?
I hope so. Yeah, you mentioned those errors, and he does have a couple in there. But if he didn't, he's got the kind of profile that he wouldn't be at Rangers kind of thing. Like, modern football looks for a player who can carry the ball out, good in the air, powerful, dominant, good passer. He's all of those. For me, he should be starting for Scotland. I know no one really cares about Scotland kind of thing, but he's Scotland's best centre-back for me. And just the as that comment says, the class that he's got on the ball is incredible. I think he also obviously has had a lot of injuries in his career. This is probably the best run of his career that I can remember anyway. So you'd imagine he's going to get better. He's still pretty young, what's he, mid-20s? He's not exactly pushing 30 at this point even, so he's going to get better. We're obviously, again, touched on it before, losing a couple of the quota guys in terms of Ryan Jack and whatnot, so there's no way he's leaving, I'll put it that way, but if he's starting next season, I've not got any problems with him. I'm more than happy to see that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think I'd like to see him still in the squad, whether or not he's going to be, starting every game. I think that's going to be it's just because injuries, isn't it? But there's another podcast talking about injuries. But some of the guys' comments here, Bluebells are blue says Suits overall impact and the way we play is miles better than Goldie, both prone to errors, but at least no Goldie long ball specials with Suits. RFC 72 here says, for me, Souttar stays as backup, and just for quota, I'll keep Balogun purely for experience. Can help the young ones and low wages also. Then we need 2 starting caliber centre backs. And Hugster here says, I like Souttar, but he was worse than Goldson the other day. That leaves us with one, well, I suppose Leon King, but I'm just going to, seen as from the academy, Leon King, I think it's maybe time for him to move on at Rangers just for the benefit of his career.
To be honest with you, I'd like to see him get minutes next season. I don't think that he would struggle against 10 out of the 11 teams we play in the league. I don't think the likes of Aberdeen, Celtic, etc. Celtic aside, Aberdeen, Hearts, Livingston, Kilmarnock, he really wouldn't struggle. I don't think that there would be much an issue there. We're a ball dominant team against most of these teams, and as long as he's playing with somebody like Connor Goldson, another reason I wasn't get rid of him, to talk him through the game, even Leon Balogun, I would 100% trust him in the squad. Whether he's going to get minutes or not, probably a different scenario altogether, and I can see him probably moving on in the summer, but I reckon it'll be a loan. I'd quite like to see him maybe even follow Lewis Mayo, go out on loan. We've seen Adam Devine going out to Motherwell. I think teams are a bit reluctant, to be honest with you, to bring in a centre half who's young on loan, especially because Rangers would want guaranteed minutes and starts. So it'll be hard to find a loan for him, but it's going to be hard for King to get into the squad, to be honest with you. Maybe if Balogun drops out or just drops minutes altogether, we'll see it, but it'll be difficult for him. Ideally, I would punt Ben Davies, get Leon King in amongst the 4 and stick with that 4 for next season. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. I just think if King was going to do it at Rangers, I think we would have done it by now. But yeah, it's like we're very harsh on our youth players. Maybe something we'll come on to talk about later on in the podcast. But Bluebells are blue. On you go, Reiss.
Although Clement kind of fancies him in another position, I think he's played him CDM a couple of times, maybe right back.
I don't think King's played centre back for a while, because even for Scotland, like the under-21s, he always plays defensive mid. I don't know if that's like a height issue, because he has like 5'10". I think he's not broke through that way at all. But any game I've seen him in the last year, he's been defensive mid. So where he stays for cover for theirs is another thing.
Leon King's going a Declan Rice charge. Watch this, he'll be playing number 8 in a couple of years.
That's it. He'll be playing striker. Can't be doing any worse than Dessers at the minute. But Bluebells are blue here says, is Big John Lee Yefeko a lost cause? Not sure. Sometimes I've seen him play and he's been good. Sometimes I've seen him play and he's been bad. There's a B-team correspondent saying that he's been poor there. And one comment just before we move on to Balogun, RSC, and this is just for you, Ian. Souttar's more suited to a back 3 rather than a 4 for me.
Exactly.
But Ian, Leon Balogun, the guy that came in, again, a question we asked in our socials, is he a guy that should deserve another year contract? I'll bring up some of the guys' comments later on here, but played 1,200 minutes, 16 games in total. Again, percentage-wise, the lowest amount of goals conceded and the highest amount of clean sheets that we've had any time he's been starting for Rangers. So, would you give him a new deal?
Yeah, I said at the start, he never lets you down. He's certainly not one of these guys that would sit and play like a couple of games a season and complain about it. I think he knows how lucky he is and how privileged he is to be at Rangers at this point in his career. Obviously, from our point of view, you just wish it was 10 years ago kind of thing. But for the low wages, for the presence he brings, and for that like probably fourth choice centre back, I guess, maybe even fifth choice if we bring in someone else. But I don't think you're going to get better than that. Obviously, he's had his injury issues here and there, so that's the one kind of thing he'd worry about, getting another year older. But there's no way he causes a problem if he stays, kind of thing. He's either here and not needed, or you can rely on him. So it's a no-brainer for me. I think Tommy mentioned that on Sunday. It's a very smart, safe move, and he can help the younger guys as well coming through. Your Leon King, your Fekos, guys like that. Great experience to have. So all for it.
Reiss, is that a no-brainer for you?
Yeah, I think his experience, his presence around the dressing room, his ability as well. I think Balogun's probably a few years older than Goldson, but he's quicker. He's more confident driving with the ball into the middle of the park, and he's not as able passing wise, but for passes that Rangers teams need, I think he's more than capable. So I'd keep him, definitely.
Yeah, no, so would I, for what it's worth. I know it's just, and that's not based on the fact that he's come in one game and we've won it after being rubbish for 2 matches. I just think, I mean, Reiss, you know, sometimes you and I are fortunate enough to go and go along at the press conferences and stuff like that. And every time if we on Balogun's name's on that, list for doing it, I'm excited because, you know, it's going to be a bit more to it than the kind of standard, and interview answers that the players give. He seems to give a bit of a different perspective. I think he represents us really well, and ultimately I think he could still do a bit of a job for us at centre half. I mean, he's going to be 36 in June, so if it's Davy Weir time, he's still got another 5 decent years of playing for us at centre back. But yeah, Paul here says Balogun deserves another year. He knows the club. He's a no-nonsense type defender. With the amount of players changing, it just makes it easier. And JD agrees with Paul. He says, good to have around, even if he didn't play one game. I hope he gets a role within Rangers after he retires. And as you both sort of touched on it, he's a guy that's just come in, totally gets the club. I think he knows, I don't want to say how fortunate he is to be playing for it, but I remember him saying when he came here from Brighton that he didn't think that he would get a chance to, still be in runs in Europe, still, being with a shout at winning a league, and he's lapping it up. He's living all our dreams, and for once I would give him I would give him another 1-year deal. Reiss, quickly, I'll get a wee opinion on this from you here. Zeb Jacobs, there was a couple of papers today running the story that he might be off to Feyenoord in the summer. Is that going to be a great loss to Rangers if he does go? And again, I'm looking for a short answer on this, but what do you think his impact has been on the academy, or has he not been there for long enough to tell?
I don't really know his impact on the academy as such, but I've bumped into him a couple of times. I've seen a few of the things that he's spoken about, like to do with the academy, and having an education background myself, I quite like his cognitive load theory stuff that he brings into it. How it relates to football is a bit far-reaching, but I see where he's coming from, and some of his ideas are brilliant. It's just whether or not they come to fruition, really. I think if you've been headhunted by teams like Feyenoord, they've seen something in you. He's a very, what's the word? He's a clever operator, and he knows what he does. He's good at networking and stuff. He's pretty well known across UEFA and stuff, so he definitely does talk a good talk, and some of his ideas and theories and stuff that he brings into it would stand the club in good stead if they're implemented and acted upon and actually come through. But to be honest with you, I don't really know how big his impact's been on the academy. The pathway through the first team has not been one we've seen a lot come through. We've seen Ross McCausland, but other than that, you've seen guys like Bailey Rice really stutter in their pathway through. So it just depends. It's got to be a flow in the system. Like Zeb Jacobs could be doing the best job in the world, but if Philippe Clement doesn't fancy the players that are coming through, then what use is the job he's doing? So it's just got to be, take it as it comes. If we lose him, we bring someone else in. But if he's here, then you appreciate what you've got and you try and make it work.
Yeah, no, listen, at the time I thought it was a very exciting appointment. It was at Royal Antwerp he came from, if my memory serves me right. And as you said, he's, I'm sure a few of us follow him in the socials and stuff like that, and he always seems to be, on the front foot, in it of innovative. Sorry, right at the forefront. As you said, sort of modern science thinking behind things. But it's the end product at the end of the day. I mean, I think he's been there for just over a year, and there's been not a lot, but we know that it takes a long time for an academy graduate to come through. Paul here says apparently only needs to give 1 month notice, which is, I suppose that's in the terms of the contract. It's not a job role I'm familiar with, so that might just be kind of standard for those. But JD hits on the kind of point where I feel about it. He says, well, he's talented enough to be chased by Feyenoord, but our youth system is a bit of a mess at the moment. Maybe suited to a football association with a better league system in place for youth. If there's clubs, Feyenoord are always there or thereabouts in Europe, a well-established club. And if they are sniffing about your backroom staff, you must be doing something right. Couple of last wee opinion on this here, because I've not brought up a comment from James Glasgow yet, but he says not quite sure how the boys supposed to develop when they have no competitive games to play. That we could do a whole other podcast on that on its self. But Ian, I'll come to you. I'll give you this question. This is one that we put out in the socials again earlier in the week. Got quite the reaction to it. Everybody knows that I love a stat in here. It's 48 games, 19 goals this season, 8 assists. At the start of the season, if you had told me that a Rangers striker was coming in and was going to do that, I'd have bitten your hand off at this stage. That man is Cyriel Dessers. Have we been too harsh on him as a support?
No.
Right, we'll move on to the next bit.
No, my tweet to respond to that was, when you're a guy who gets minimum three good chances per game playing at Rangers, you should have more than 19 goals. I think we're a little blindsided that we've not had a guy who's been able to do that for years, like Morelos. We all love him. He was amazing. He was brilliant. He was everyone's favourite player, but he wasn't an out-and-out goal scorer, like numbers-wise. So if Morelos has that kind of season, you think, well done, but it's the extra that he gives you, whereas Dessers doesn't give you that. I think if you look through a YouTube compilation of Dessers' goals this season, would look pretty good. His stats are all right. I think we'll have no bother selling him. But the thing that gets me, and probably gets most of the people, is how much more he could and should have at this point. I mean, he going on like chances and XG and all this kind of stuff, he could have been at 20 goals 3-4 months ago, kind of thing. He has obviously come into a game at times. He's done well. He's been a lot better when we've not relied on him, and he's been able to set a game out or come off the bench and has less pressure on him, as anyone would be. So I'm not going to slate the guy, because he's always available. He's always there. He's always turned up, which a lot of our strikers don't or can't or haven't been able to, kind of thing. So he does get credit for that. But I'm going to guess one of your follow-up questions here is, do we keep Dessers or not? And I'm quite keen on him having a season here, doing okay, and just moving on, get our money back. I know that was one of the conversations in our podcast chat the other day. Do we get a profit on him? Do we just try and get anything, kind of thing? But if we can get our money back, move him on, and get someone who's more suited to us, a more clinical poacher, finisher, whatever you want to call it, someone who's going to get your 20 goals and then some, that's what we need if we want to be successful long term.
Listen, there's some... I agree entirely with what you were saying there, and a lot of the comments are coming in, are agreeing with it as well. Mark G says could have had 40 plus easy if he could finish first time. I think that's what it is. As Rangers fans, we're always striving to be the best. I think I saw another stat somewhere that he's missed 28. I can't remember. You might be able to correct me in the wording here, either the two of you, because you're football manager boffins, but like it's clear goal scoring chances or something like that. Is that what it was? He said 28 of those. These chances, something like that. JD here says he's outscored Ali McCoy's first 2 seasons league tally. I see the look of fear on Reese's face there. Robert Robertson says no, it could have been double that, but he's the best we've got, and we need to get behind him. Paul here says, on Dessers, remember, he was our third choice striker. Injuries has forced him to be number one. Nearly 30 goal contributions this season is good, but strikers need the service. Yeah, it'll be interesting. And that's the final point I'll leave on it, Ian, was I think that's the main thing. He has been available for virtually every single game, never shirked away. It's got that thing that Tav does, is, you know, as much as he gets pelters and criticism, he never hides. He's always shown for it. And okay, even if he does have a couple of duff chances, or not duff chances, good chances, but he doesn't take them, you know, he's always still there fighting. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be overly critical if he was to get shifted on in the summer. Right, Reiss, I'll ask this question of you next. This is a question that I think, again, you could base a whole blinking podcast around it. I've asked it in the comments, so we'll bring up some people's answers to that. But who is a guaranteed starter for Rangers going forward? I said I'm not going to give away my names. I think I left the names on my agenda for the two of you, but I had 4 names on that list, and I couldn't believe how low that was. Are you thereabouts? You got more? Are you a bit more optimistic than I am, Reiss, for that?
Assuming it's for the rest of the season, I've probably got just a bit more. I would go Butland, Tav, Yilmaz when fit, Cantwell, Sima, and yeah, that's probably it. Lundstrom probably as well. So like 5 maybe.
So say go over them again.
So Butland,
Tav, yeah.
I think the centre backs, it could be any two of say 4. So none of them. Yilmaz, because I honestly don't trust Borna Barisic anymore, especially now that he's probably off. I think he would just throw a disaster class in. Lundstrom, because I don't like Nico Raskin this season for whatever reason.
Fair enough.
So many have I got? 3 already. 4 with Lundstrom, 5 with Cantwell, 6 with Sima, and I think if everyone's fit, he doesn't start, but purely because of who's fit, Dessers has got to start for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And Ian, are you in agreement with Reiss there? Have you got those players down there? I must say, there's nobody controversial in amongst that. That surprisingly enough from Reiss that I'll have picked out there. But do you think the same in terms of, from now into this end of the season, that those guys will be guaranteed a place starting?
Yeah, I think all the ones you mentioned are, to be honest. I would probably add in Diomande. I think if Diomande's fit, he plays just now. I think he shows why on Sunday there. A lot of comments are saying Sterling as well, which I would have Sterling in my team every game. I get that. But the one kind of thing with Sterling is you don't know where he fits in to that team. Like, is he right mid? Is he left back? Is he centre mid? Is he in goal? Like, who actually knows where he should be, kind of thing. Also, that leads into next season as well. If Tav is going, is Sterling just going to sit in at right back? Is that just made in heaven? Or is he then wasted that he's not in the middle of the park? There's a whole other podcast about that kind of thing. But in terms of other starters, I mean, I'd expect Souttar to play. I think he's kind of first choice centre back now, the way this is all kind of panned out, weirdly. But beyond that, I mean, in right midfield is a toss up front. I wouldn't say Dessers is guaranteed a start because I don't like him up front, and I want Silva up front, but I know how much people right now hate Silva, so I'm not going to make this pod that conversation. But I just think he brings more if you have like a Cantwell and a Sima and a bit more pace around it, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think there's anyone else we can bank on really starting. It's just a game of Clement roulette as always. The rest.
Yeah, I like that Clement roulette. That's definitely a game I'd be playing at the casino. There we go. I've just given Mr. Bisgrove another idea for the money making machine that is Rangers. There we go. Reiss, they got better odds than that than the bet you've put on with Scott in the podcast. So
honestly, it was the most impulsive thing ever.
Yeah, you're not joking.
I don't think the viewers have ever heard how it's came about, really, right? So basically, Scott said, "Do you reckon when we brought in Fabio Silva, I said I reckon he'd be good in like Old Firm games in Europe and stuff with space." And sure as anything, has actually been alright in Old Firm games. But Scott said, do you reckon he outscores Dessers for the end of the season? I says, I don't know, probably. Scott went, I bet you Dessers outscores
I think
him.
you said definitely. I think you went double.
I probably did say definitely.
Yeah.
And then Scott went, I bet you Dessers outscores him. And then I went, right, do you know what, I'll back Silva. And it was just total impulsive, didn't think about it, and learned my lesson. Please gamble responsibly.
There we go. I was just about to add that in, but I did promise some of the viewers and listeners out there that I would bring some of the comments into who they thought was the guaranteed starters here. RSE72 says Butland, Tav, Ridvan, if fit, and how many players could you tag that on to the bloody end of?
He does.
Yeah, yes, I've just not read the rest of it. Lunny, Dio, Cantwell, Sima, if fit, and Dessers, Sterling also. Don Does Car says Lunny is an empty jersey. James Glasgow here says Diomande, surely. Robert Robertson, Butland, Balogun, Ridvan, Lunny, Dio, Cantwell, and Dessers. Paul here says starters, Butland, Lunny, Cantwell, Dessers, Tav, Diomande, and Sterling. I was going to ask you both about this next guy, Fabio Silva. I did see something on X, Twitter, whatever the bloody hell it's called, that they would not be playing him from now until the end of the season. You know, you're always getting some people that he's not a Rangers player, he's on loan, but then you're obviously going to be playing Sima to the end of the season. But I'm going to ditch asking you about that, and I'll ask you this, seeing as it's coming from somebody who is a member of the channel. It says, here's one for the panel. Serious question. I'm going to come to you first, Ian.
Did I give it away?
The man to save our season next year?
No. You take anything you can get there, move on, call it a loss. I know he's been great over there. I get that. That's good for us. Maybe we can get a profit somehow. But I don't want to see him in Glasgow again, let alone at Ibrox again. No, non-starter. Sell him. That's the first sale this summer to get the ball rolling in terms of reinvestment to back into the squad. I think you get minimum 3 million or so for him. That's a good price. Yeah. We're somehow not going to lose money on him, but he doesn't come back. Surely if you're him, you don't want to come back. Surely you've found a home, you found a fan base, a team that likes you and loves you, and he's not cut out for what Rangers is. That's not happening.
Yeah, no, I think I'm in agreement with there. Some of the comments here, RFC72 says bring him home. I don't know how many people will be on that bandwagon. Paul here says definitely no Lammers, sell for a profit, and I totally agree. JD here says I'm bottling his current form and parading him with a bow tie to all Dutch teams cash in. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure that Utrecht are a team. I don't even think they've spent anywhere near what we would be looking for from him, so I think he would have to go to one of the other clubs, but you never know. Somebody can put if Seb Jacobs goes over to Feyenoord, hopefully he can put a good word in for us. Maybe that might be the best move of the summer there. But look, we've got 5 minutes left to the show. It wouldn't be a Wednesday podcast without looking ahead to the game at the weekend. Obviously, we're not aware of all the injuries because no doubt there will be some. I'm just glad we're not talking about Diomande's thumb again. So yeah, Reiss, I'll come to you. What sort of game are you expecting against a pretty stuffy St Mirren team? They've been done really well under Stephen Robinson this year. He's a manager that's been touted to a few clubs. I know he was heavily linked with the Aberdeen job at one point as well. What are you expecting from St Mirren?
Well, you know they're going to be intense. You know they're going to have runners that are going to match most of our players regardless. So you're just going to need that wee bit of quality to break through. I think a couple of months ago, I would have been all out to play Cantwell and Lawrence in front of Lundstrom, just to give us two sort of ball playing attacking options there that are really technical. But Lawrence has looked miles off it for me in the last few weeks. So hopefully Diomande can step up into that plate as well and doesn't get thrown about physically, because I think he's probably lacking a wee bit of physicality, and especially if they've got Alex Gogic playing, they're going to be brutal and physical. Like we've seen it when we went to St Mirren Park or this Misa Stadium, whatever it's called, last time. They were really, I think we maybe get away with one in the end, but They had a few boys up front as well that were handfuls, and Ryan Strain at right back's a good player. I think it's Tanzer at left back as well. Decent fullbacks, so play through the middle. Hopefully Dessers throws a few people off the ball and we get a few goals.
Well, that's it, exactly. You know, they're a very physical team. They're very, very well organised. Every time I've seen a Stephen Robinson team, whether it be at Motherwell, St Mirren, they do look to be, you know, structurally very sound. And that I know that's an area that Clement's identified as where it went a bit wrong for us in the Dundee and the Ross County game. But Ian, looking for a lineup from yourself, do you think there will be many changes from the weekend? And I think the one we'll maybe all be talking about come 11:30 on Sunday is who is playing centre back.
Yeah, a lot of it comes into this if fit in brackets thing again, sadly. As hope Ridvan's finally back. I mean, we've heard he's been training away from the team for a few weeks before last weekend, so sure it's another week that he's got closer, so hopefully he's back. Seema's the worry for me. Obviously went off very early against Hearts. We've not heard anything, whether that was a strain, a pull, anything, we don't know. So I expect him to not start. So I would guess the starting lineup is going to be the team that was on the pitch when Seema went off. So I think McCausland will start. I think Sterling will still be left back. And it'll just still be Balogun and Souttar. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Kept the clean sheet, kept the third highest scoring team at bay on Sunday. So I'd keep they two again at the back. And as Reiss said, it's going to be a bit of a battle, but at this stage of the season, it's just win the game. Don't care how you win it, just win the game. As you said, Stephen Robinson's a good coach. He'll have them well drilled. I do like him as a manager. I think he's pretty good. Does a lot with like a very low budget all the time kind of thing. So
yeah,
if I can get an early goal and just settle my heart rate, I'll be delighted. It's just I'd get the goals, get up the road kind of game. So let's hope it's nice and straightforward.
That's it. I think that's a fair stab at a lineup if fit is playing. RFC 72 here says if we all know who's fit, we'd maybe pick a lineup. But Paul gives us one here. He says Butland, Tav, Goldson, Ridvan if he's fit, not Sterling. Lunny, Diomande, Cantwell, Seema left, McCausland and Dessers. JD here says Tav, Balogun, Souttar, Sterling, Dio, Raskin, Cantwell, Silva, McCausland, Dessers. Few shouts in there from McCausland. I thought he done pretty well when he came in at the weekend. Obviously not the same impact as Seema, but I think he helps Tav a bit more. Yeah. And he says, I don't want to pick Silva, but not sure about availability. And it'll be interesting to see if Silva does feature more. I think he will, just based on the manager's feelings from him, but I think if the support had their way, he wouldn't be playing many more games for Rangers. And Butland, RSC 72 says Butland, Tav, Goldson, Butland, Tav, Balogun, Souttar. That just shows you how ingrained it is in my brain that I just said Goldson. I know. Yeah. It's it's just a hyphenated name, isn't it? Balogun, Souttar, Ridvan, Lundy, Dio, Cantwell, Silva, Dessers and Sterling. Yeah, it'll be interesting as well. If Yilmaz is fit, I think that'll be the big question. Is Lundstrom dropped for Sterling? I can't see the manager doing it, but again, I think it's something that all the fans would like to see. And no, you're not into that, Reiss?
I don't think Sterling could be a holding midfielder. I think he's better on the right, whether it's right back or right mid. I think that's how he's been pretty defiant, and that he's not a centre back. I don't know. There's something about him centrally that I'm not keen on. Even in a 3 in midfield, I want him on the right hand side. I don't want him at the 6. So I don't know. It's just a bit of personal preference there. I think he's better being able to drift through positions rather than having to hold the ship at a certain point.
You know, I think that's fair enough, but he gives you that. He's that anchor point in the midfield for me, and he just gives you something that some of the other players are lacking a bit at the minute in terms of that. But listen, before we go, I'll get your score predictions. I'll come to you first, Ian.
I think a very business 2-0 is on the cards here. Just like I say, early goal, another one at the hour mark kind of thing, and just comfortable, relaxed afternoon. Just trying to manifest that, to be honest. That's all I'm doing here.
Yeah, comfortable, relaxed afternoon in Rangers, and not phrases that often go together. Reiss, what about yourself in terms of score prediction?
2-1. We'll go 2-1, 2-0 up in half an hour. They'll score about the hour mark, and you'll have no fingernails by 90 minutes.
That sounds more realistic, to be fair, doesn't it?
That's just because I'll be clawing my way out of the room, getting out of it here. But some of the listeners and watchers are saying, Robert Robson says, not a lot, Kyle. 3-0 to Rangers, Balogun from a corner, man. Wouldn't that be nice was to see Rangers finally getting a goal from a corner? Because I know you've been banging on about that in the comments in the whole podcast. GD here says 2-0 to us, Dessers and Cantwell. I would take that for our scorers all day long. RSE72 says 3-1 to the famous. Paul goes a bit more optimistic. He says 4-0, Dessers double, Cantwell and Tav. I would take that every day of the week. But as always, just want to say thank you to both my fantastic guests. So thank you very much, Iain, for joining us tonight.
Pleasure as always, mate. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Reiss, for doing the double dunter and coming on again.
Cheers, mate. I enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure as always. And listen, thank you to everybody watching, tuning in. Just remember, you can get us in all the usual places. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, tell your pals about us. We'll be back on Sunday with our usual podcast. And I'm sure, I can't remember who's on it. I think it might be Craig that's hosting, but I can't remember who the contributors are. But they'll be brilliant as always. They'll break down the game and give you a bit of insight into everything. And if there's anything you guys want to ask, leave us in the comments. We can try and bring it up in a future podcast. But take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all again soon.